You couldn't name 3 people on the Sacramento Kings, and I led the league in assists.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And today's podcast is also brought to you by Sheldon Spivak, who is today's Patreon sponsor. If you want to be like Sheldon and support the show, head across to patreon.com/redrock_bball. We are here to talk about the games that just went down on Tuesday, to talk about the action that's coming up on Wednesday, and I'll also talk about the Chris Paul injury news that came across the timelines today. So, without wasting too much more time,
let's get to it.
We'll start off with Chris Paul, who suffered that injury in yesterday's game as we were recording the show. Talking about he had that hand issue. It turned out to be X-rays negative, which I mentioned yesterday. That meant there was no break, but we're looking at ligament damage, and that's exactly what we got. A torn ligament in the thumb, and Paul's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. That puts his return first week, second week of March, around that time. 6 weeks I think is the 3rd of March. 8 weeks is 2 weeks after that. And that's going to be smack bang in your fantasy playoffs. So there's a number of things to look at here. Austin Rivers, he was probably already a must-own guy. He's a clear must-own player now. Blake's going to be out for 2 or 3 more weeks, so we're going to be having stacks of Austin Rivers and stacks of Ray Felton playing next to each other. Felton is the other guy that gets the bump, and both of these players are must-own guys. If you're looking for more assists and more steals, Felton will be the guy. If you want more points, some more threes, then Austin Rivers will be your guy. That's the 2 major differences between these 2 players, but both of them should be owned. And realistically, it's somewhat of a coin flip as to who you want. They're both going to be getting 30-plus minutes for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now, when Blake comes back, I think they ease Blake in for the first couple of weeks there as well. Maybe the first week. They're not going to have a huge amount of leeway depending on how things go in the interim, but they might ease him back, and that'll keep those guys with some minutes maybe for an extra week. But after that, it'll be a decision: do they start Rivers or do they start Felton? And I think we're going to see over the next few weeks that decision get made as to who plays best in Paul's absence. So it's not something we can say, yeah, definitely when Blake comes back, Austin's gone, and then Felton's going to be getting the starts. I don't think we can be as certain of that moving forward. So Ray and Austin, both guys that you want to grab in standard leagues. For deeper leagues, Jamal Crawford gets somewhat of an increase. JJ Redick's value solidifies. I was going to call him DJ Jordan. DeAndre Jordan's value probably dips a little bit as he has to carry the load now with both Blake and CP out, and he really struggles in that sort of a role. So I don't imagine huge stuff coming from DeAndre Jordan in this little run now for the Clippers. But as for Paul, there's numerous scenarios here. Okay, you can, if you own him and you're comfortable at the top of your standings, first and second, which I've got a couple of people, I'm 20 games clear, hold on to him. You should be able to withstand a 20-game gap in 6 weeks' time. You should. That's basically, it means you're going to be the person who's second, they're going to be getting 3 games more than you each week. Three extra category wins than you each week to get ahead. And I don't think that'll necessarily be the case. I think you're pretty safe in that sort of a scenario. In the middle of a playoff battle, you're 6th and the 4 teams go to the playoffs, having a 0 on your roster is really, really hard to do. And I'm not saying to drop Chris Paul, but you should be exploring trades. Who you should explore the trades with are the people that you are battling for. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those guys. Because they take on that guy, and it really hurts, and they might have supreme confidence of them getting themselves to the playoffs and say, hey, look at me, I got Chris Paul for a bargain. They should have that benefit going, or they might have that thought process, and that's a benefit to you because that hurts them in the interim, and then they probably won't get into the playoffs in that scenario. So that's who you should be targeting. Inevitably, well, maybe not inevitably, but a lot of the times they won't bite on that, they won't want to do it. But realize if you're trading Chris Paul in one of those scenarios, you're not getting a top 20 guy back. You probably will struggle to get a top 50 player back. And that's totally fine. But I would consider making that move because a top 60 guy is better than a 0 if you're trying to make the playoffs. And you're also hurting the guys who you were opposed to get that spot. So it's a win-win if you can pull it off. The teams who should be looking to acquire Chris Paul are the teams who are 20 spots up in first or second place. Only those cases. Now, there is a risk that Paul doesn't come back until the last week of fantasy playoffs. The 18th, which depending on your league, that might be the third round, it might be the second round. Depends on your league, but it's going to be the end of the playoffs. So you might not even get him back for the first round of the playoffs. And then having a 0 in the first round of the playoffs is impossible to do. So have a look at your playoffs. See where they start. It's not a situation that I really recommend trading for. Unless you've got IR, then it's a little bit of a different story, and it depends what you give up in that case. And if you want to give up a guy that's a 90 or an 80 to get Chris Paul and stick him in your IR with the hope that he comes back for round 2 of the playoffs, then yeah. But trading him and having him as a 0 on your team and then potentially not having him for the first week of fantasy playoffs, it'll cost you. It will cost you that matchup almost no doubt. You can be as good as you want, but playing 12 men versus 13 men will make it tough to do. So it always comes down to what the deal is, where you're positioned, what your dates are in your league. So there's no way that I can give blanket advice, sell Paul, drop Paul, trade Paul, any of that stuff. It all comes down to multiple scenarios, and that's what I'm trying to cover here in this instance. So take a look at it, but if you are in that playoff hunt, in that 4 to 8 range, trade Paul to one of the guys in that same range. That is what you should be trying to do, because you can benefit yourself and subsequently hurt them as well. And again, you're not going to get big return off it. Try and get something big. Try and get a top 30 guy if you can. Probably the best option is, say you're 6th and the guy is 5th. Go, look, man, I've got to trade him. I've got to try and catch you. I can't afford this. I'm out of the playoffs. I need to get in. That might be a way of trying to swing it. It's not going to work for everybody, but that's the way that you should be approaching this. If you're out of playoff contention or you're not going to make the playoffs, don't be a dick and drop him. Don't trade him to someone if you've got no chance of making the playoffs. That's a dick move, and I don't think that's really on at all. If you're not any hope of making the playoffs, don't cut him and then someone can go and add him for free. That just is not... Okay, it might end up hurting that person, but I still don't think that's the right thing to do. So if you've got any specific Chris Paul questions, please let me know, as many of you did already today across on Facebook or on Twitter. You can hit me up there and see exactly what I think in your specific scenario. Sometimes I do apologize. I always apologize. Sometimes I can't get to everyone's questions because I do get inundated with them, especially when news breaks, because I've got to obviously be working across at Basketball Monster and processing all that information and trying to work out stuff there. So sometimes I don't get to all your tweets and questions and DMs. They do get lost in the shuffle occasionally. So I do apologize if that has happened to you of late. So that's the Chris Paul injury news. Let's move in and talk about all the action that did go down on Tuesday, starting with the monstrous line of the night. And I'm going to be very brief with this one because there's no point in me talking about James Harden again. He had another 40-point triple-double. He had 40 points, obviously, in a 40-point triple-double. That's exactly what you would get. He had 40 points. He had 12 rebounds. He had 10 assists. He hit 4 triples. He had 2 steals. Now, his shot wasn't great, and he started off the game fairly slow. 12 of 30 from the field, but 12 of 13 from the free throw line is obviously ridiculous. He is the number 1 player in fantasy this year. He has now had 3 40-point triple-doubles in his last 6 games, which is ridiculous. Over the last 3 seasons, there have been 10 40-point triple-doubles. It's ridiculous. In the last 6 games, he's had 3 of them, and there's been 10 in the last 3 seasons. And the only people to have them are Harden and Westbrook. I think Westbrook's had 6, and Harden has had 4 all this season, and Westbrook has had 6 over the last 2 seasons. So pretty ridiculous stuff from Jim, but yeah, don't really need to go too much into him. You know who he is at the moment. He is absolutely killing it pretty much every time he's out there, which is always... And even when he starts off slow, big games just tend to follow. The waiver wire line of the night is Farton Will Barton of the Denver Nuggets. Now, Barton was limited in Tuesday's action. Tuesday? What day are we? Monday's action. That's it. In Monday's action due to an illness, because Gary Harris went down early and it was Jameer Nelson that saw all the playing time. But they did mention after the game that Barton was dealing with a high fever, so that's why he didn't play. But in this one, he got the start and he played big minutes and he put up good stats, as he often does. 26 points for Barton, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 triples, 9 of 16 from the field, and 3 of 5 from the line. He will do this, and he'll also score 8 points with 2 rebounds in the next game, most likely. We don't know how long Gaz Harris is going to be out at this point, but adding Fart and Will Barton is absolutely fine to do in 12-team leagues for this time being. Once Gaz returns, I don't think we really need to be worrying too much about Barton outside of 14-team leagues, but for now, yeah, absolutely go and grab him. In fact, he's been shooting the ball fantastically. 48% over the last 2 weeks for Barton and 88% from the line. They're huge numbers. It's coming on 63% three-point shooting, which is obviously going to regress because nobody is that good a three-point shooter, especially not Will Barton. But he should be a top 100 guy for as long as Gaz is out. So add him. That's going to be useful for you. A big game from him in this one here against in this win against the Lakers. Much like James Harden, the young gun of the night, I don't need to talk about Karl Anthony Towns all that much. 27 and 16 with 2 triples, a block. He hit all 5 of his free throws and went 10 of 18 from the field. As I touched on the other day when he won the monstrous line of the night, his field goal percentage, his free throw percentage are back up, and that makes him a top 10 player now. He's a top 10 player over the last 2 weeks, and it is because he's shooting 56% from the field and 88% from the line, and that's caused his rank to jump up as much as it has. So as much of a disappointment as he's been this season, it's solely been shooting. That's it. He's a 57% true shooting this season. Last year he was at 59. The last 2 weeks he's at 63. You increase that shooting, then his rank just skyrockets and he becomes that guy that we hoped he could have been in the preseason, and let's hope he can continue it. He's rolling at the moment. The numbers are up, the blocks are back up, and the shooting is back up. You know, no reason for complaint about Cat just at this point. I'm sure, though, you've got plenty of complaints about the dud of the night, and that is Pau Gasol, who was horrendous. 3 points with 5 rebounds for Pau, 1 assist. He took 2 shots. He hit one of them. He had 2 free throws, and of course, he hit one of those. I don't know what's wrong with this guy. I know the minutes are well down. He's playing only 26 a game this season, but there is no excuse for Pau Gasol being a 50% free throw shooter over the last 2 weeks. I feel he's pissed. I feel he's not happy with the role, and I feel that we know that Pau is a sensitive guy. We know that he gets emotionally affected by a lot of things, and I get the feeling that that is what's happening here. He is still averaging 8 boards a game, 12 points a game for the year, and 1.2 blocks, but if you invested a top 50 pick, which was not a great idea at the time, but if you did happen to do that, you're not happy with this return. And over the last 2 weeks, he's outside the top 140 on 9 points in 25 minutes, 8 rebounds, and as I said, shooting just 50% from the line. Is he a droppable player? I had that question today. I guess it depends. Who are you adding? Who's on your waiver wire? In a 10-team league, I don't have an issue in a 10-team league. If you're in that 4 to 8 zone where you go, man, these guys are shitting the bed for 2 weeks. I cannot afford this. I need to stream this through. I need to add someone else. I can totally understand that because we know there's going to be some games that Power misses down the stretch here. That will happen with him, no doubt. The guy's 36 years old or however he is. He's going to put up. He's going to sit out a couple of games moving forward. That'll happen, and his production is already waning. In a 12-teamer, I would probably hold on to him. But it does really depend on your individual situation. But the free throws is the biggest confusion to me. Why he can't hit any of them is such a baffling thing. Like, the dude was an 80% shooter for the last 2 years, 64 this year. That is such a significant drop-off, and it's hurt him immeasurably because he's one of those guys, I get a big that gets me 1.5 blocks, 2 blocks a game, and shoots a good free throw percentage. Well, not only is he not blocking 2 shots a game, but now he's actively hurting your free throw percentage as well. So some pretty weird stuff going on with Power so far this season, and turnaround doesn't seem all that likely, although I think he'll be better than what we've seen these last 2 weeks. But don't feel afraid to drop. Again, we've got 6 weeks most likely until fantasy playoffs begin, depending on your settings, but they should start around the start of March. So you've got 6 weeks left. We're in business mode here. You need to make sometimes a hard decision for a guy that at his best, this season's best, he's an 80 ranked player, which in a 10-team league, just piss it off. You can afford to do that in those sort of circumstances if you're battling. So don't go just by name value alone. Go by scenario, go by player, go by production, go by lots of different things. But not just by, he's Pau Gasol, he used to be good. Because at the moment, he most definitely isn't. All right. let's get into these games now. Let's talk about the 5 games that we had happening on Tuesday. The first one was the Rockets and the Heat. That's a really horrible loss for the Rockets traveling to Miami. Jimmy Harden, as I touched on, was big, and Pat Beverley had a nice game, 12, 7, and 3 with 2 steals. This was a game that Ryan Anderson was out of due to an illness. So he sat, and the Rockets went with Corey Brewer as the starter. Now, Brewer played 26 minutes, 8 points, 2 triples, and 2 steals. He's basically their fill-in starter when anyone seems to miss. Pat Bev missed the other day, so Brewer started in his place. Ryan Anderson misses today, Brewer starts in his place. If Anderson or Eric Gordon happen to be out, you're going to see an increase in minutes for Brewer. Gordon hurt his ankle in this game. You're going to see an increase in minutes for Brewer, but it's not going to be enough to make him anywhere near 12-team useful. He's still just a 16-team league sort of a guy. Pat Bev, 12, 7, and 3 with 2 steals. Ariza had 11 and 8 in his 39 minutes, and we had the return of Clint Capella. Now, pre-game, D'Antoni was saying, we're looking at 20 minutes for Capella. He played him 9 minutes, only in the first half. There was no re-aggravation of injury. It was just like, okay, we've got to ease him back in, which you could have said in the preseason, not the preseason, in the pre-game stuff. We want to ease him back in, not we'll play him 20 minutes and then play him 9 minutes and a half. But he started straight in his first game. He had 5 points. He had a block. He was definitely rusty. The important thing is that it moved the table Montrezl Harrell to 3rd string. Harrell's done. 10-team leagues done, 12-team leagues done, 14-team leagues probably done as well as he moved down to the 3rd string guy. Capella's minutes are only going to go up, and yes, Nene did play 24 minutes here, but this was a game that Capella saw 9 minutes and the table saw only 16. So yeah, it was a nice little run from Montrez, but he's done. We didn't know exactly what D'Antoni would do, because prior to the Capella injury, we were seeing 22 minutes out of Capella, we were seeing 18 from Nene and 18 or 20 from Harrell, but that's sort of best case scenario maybe here now, given this current or the way that they've started things off, and then it could get worse as it was today. So the table's kaput. He did score 13 points in 16 minutes, while Nene had 4 and 7 with a steal and a block in his 24 minutes, the most minutes he's played for quite a while there as well. But we're not adding Nene anywhere. Capella, as usual, punt free throws, you can add him. I wouldn't be doing it in any scenario other than that, and I wouldn't be expecting 27 minutes a game, maybe not at all for the rest of this season. Interesting to see exactly how D'Antoni runs that. Eric Gordon did hurt his ankle, came back and played, but they said after the game they'll have to reevaluate him for the games moving forward, so that's something to bear in mind. He was horrific, shooting 3 of 17 for just 7 points. For the Heat, Jim Johnson, my man. Yes, Jim Johnson, Almada, our only son. He played 31 minutes. He went 15, 8, and 6. He had 3 steals, and he is as must-own as anybody that's potentially floating on your waiver wire. He has to be owned. He is putting up stats at a phenomenal rate. Got to own him. It's as simple as that. Goran Dragic had 21, 8, and 8 in his 37 minutes, while Tyler Johnson had 16, 2, and 3 with 3 steals. Johnson also a must-own player. Well, we had a Wayne Ellington sighting. 18 points with 5 triples, but he is one of the flukiest players in the NBA. He'll get out there, he might get hot and score, and then you'll have like 17 minutes in another game. No reason to add Ellington in anything outside of 20-team leagues, I don't believe. Dion Waiters, with Joshy Richardson out, Waiters is going to get some extra playing time, but he only saw 28 minutes here, 17, 5, and 3, and that can be useful. That can be 12-team league useful. There are other guys I'd prioritise, Felton, Rivers, Jim Johnson, any of those players I would prioritise over Waiters, but short-term, you can add him as long as you're ready to deal with the consequences of poor field goal percentage. He was good in this one, 7 of 15, but he's been like a 30% shooter since returning from injury. And the 2 starters, Scooter Magruder and Luke Babbitt, both played under 17 minutes. Obviously, no impact for those guys. Let's talk about the next game. It's Toronto and Brooklyn. Seemingly out of nowhere, Kyle Lowry had a rest day, so Corey Joseph started, played 37 minutes, and had a career-high night, 33 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, while DeMar DeRozan, who struggled early, ended with 36, 11, and 6 with a steal, and did that on 10 of 10 from the line and 13 of 28 from the field. I've got issues with Dwayne Casey. You know that. Actually, I'll talk about that in a sec. Because Jonas Valanciunas, he played 29 minutes, and this was a game that there was no Pat Patterson, there was no Kyle Lowry, and Baba Nogueira copped a smack in the face from Trevor Booker very early on, and he had to leave the game after playing just 7 minutes. So, Jonas Valanciunas played 29 minutes. but he took 7 shots. So, we can crush the Raptors for some of their play at times. Now, their offense has been ridiculously efficient this season. No issues with that. But some of their stuff in the playoffs last season was horrific, and it was just Lowry, DeRozan, ISOs the whole time without giving Valanciunas any sort of touches. And we can blame DeRozan, you can blame Lowry for that, but a lot of it has to go on Casey, because in a situation where Lowry is out, Corey Joseph steps in and takes 22 shots, 3 times as many shots as Jonas Valanciunas, and they just refuse to pass him the ball. It's an offensive scheme thing, it's an offensive system thing, it's a coaching thing. Yes, Lowry and DeRozan are part of that, but it's got to come from coaching. Like, Corey Joseph doesn't just come in and Dwayne Casey goes from Corey, get the ball to Jonas, he's going to be able to score, he's going to have some mismatches here, and Corey Joseph doesn't go, coach, piss off, man, I'm doing it myself. Who do you think you are? Like, this is Corey Joseph. Like, I can imagine Kyle Lowry going, nah, coach, I'll do it. Corey Joseph's not doing that. He's got the green light to do this. And it worked out brilliantly because he went 15 of 22. But it's still a frustrating... Again, you should be looking at processes rather than results. And results are nice. They work well. But this process is such a weird scenario to me that it's like, okay, let's just eliminate Valanciunas from the scoring ideas at all. And give all the shots to Corey Joseph. Weird stuff. I imagine Lowry's back for Tuesday, but I do think that DeMar DeRozan has a chance of sitting. I don't know that he will for sure, but we saw this in the second half of last season when the Raptors had back-to-backs. You'd get Lowry sitting one game, you'd get DeMar DeRozan sitting the next one. Now, neither player had rested at all this season until today, where it came out of nowhere. This is a back-to-back for the Raptors, a Brooklyn-Philadelphia back-to-back. Now, Philadelphia has improved a lot, but quite Casey might look at it and say, all right, DeMar, have a night off. Like, DeRozan played 37 minutes in this game against the Nets. You could say, again, he's a couple of years younger than Kyle Lowry, and maybe he can play through it, but I'm saying there is a non-zero chance that DeMar DeRozan sits out Wednesday's action, and then we see Lowry and Norm Powell as a huge scoring night between those two. So that's something to pay attention to. Terry Ross had 15 points with a really full line, 3 triples, a steal, and 2 blocks for Terry. He was always in a good spot coming into this game, and he made the most of it. Of course, I got confused by a tweet coming through, which I'm not sure is fully serious or not. He had a good game. 3 steals, 2 blocks. 3 threes, 1 steal, and 2 blocks, putting up some impressive numbers. He's more a 14-team leaguer, but he's a really good 3-point streaming guy, while Damari Carroll, 9 points, which all came on threes. He had 2 steals and played 26 minutes. We saw the young guys, Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet, really play well in the second half. VanVleet as the backup point guard and played alongside Corey Joseph a lot. 25 minutes for VanVleet, 10, 4, and 2 with 2 steals and 2 triples. If you're going to run a VanVleet-Joseph backcourt, surely you can find room for Norm Powell in there, but according to Dwayne Casey, you can't. But VanVleet was impressive, as was Siakam, who had 3 blocks in his 15 minutes. Let's talk Nets. Kenny Atkinson's a very frustrating coach. Brookie Lopez played 32. He was back from his rest, 28 and 8 with 2 blocks. The Nets got beaten 119-109. But you got your 2 young stars, and I use stars fairly loosely, but in Brooklyn, they're stars. You don't have stars in Brooklyn. You don't have all this young talent to develop. You've got 2, and their names are Karis LeVert and Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. So why is it so hard for them to get consistently big minutes? They were fantastic here. Both players scored 14 points. LeVert played 23 minutes, had 14, 3, and 4. Hit 2 triples, had 2 steals. Hollis-Jefferson played 26. He went 14 and 8 with 3 assists, a steal, and a block. Both of those lines would be must-own 12-team league players. But in addition to not being able to rely upon their inconsistency as young players, you can't rely upon Atkinson to give them the minutes to develop, because we've got to have 18 minutes of stinking Joe Harris. We've got to have 18 minutes of Randy Foye. We've got to have, no offense to Sean Kilpatrick, but he's not the future of anybody. We don't need 26 minutes of Sean Kilpatrick. You could absolutely grab Hollis-Jefferson in a 12-team league, been really strong the last couple of games, and is trending upwards. You could do it. I'm not sure that I would, but you can. LeVert, probably a 14-team league sort of a guy. But as I've talked about a million times in this podcast, he's got a fantastic fantasy profile. I think he can be a really good fantasy contributor and should be a top 120, top 100 guy mid-Feb onwards, post-All-Star. I think he can be that player. But it has been really frustrating the way that Kenny Atkinson has used these guys. Bojan Bogdanovic just the 21 minutes for 11 points, while Trevor Booker went 8 and 8 in 22 minutes. I'd love to see Rondé getting more of Trevor Booker's minutes. And Booker has been great this season, but he has dropped off significantly. He is not a must-own 10-team leaguer, in my opinion. In 12 teams, it really depends, but I wouldn't feel married to him. I just don't think that we're going to see the same ceiling we saw from Booker to begin the season. I just don't see him getting back to that level of production, which was crazy because he was like leading the league in steals for the first month or so of the season, when that's really going to be hard for that to continue. The point guards continue to be horrible as well. Spencer Dinwiddie and Isaiah Whitehead, and they go a long stretch without playing either of those two guys, like a 10, 12 minutes a game without either of those guys on the court. Dallas and Chicago. Oh, all right, the Mavericks get the victory thanks to a last minute Wes Matthews three-pointer. Let's talk about the Mavericks here first. Darren Williams, 11, 6, and 9 in his 30 minutes. Great production. Seth Curry played 30 minutes, 18, 2, and 2, 3 triples and 2 steals. Great production. Came on 7 of 10 shooting, which is high, but I think he led the league in three-point percentage in December, Seth Curry, so he is a very good shooter. But that's obviously a little bit above par there for him. Is he a 12-team league guy? Look, at the moment, you can't argue that he isn't. But I say long-term, I don't believe that he will continue to be one. But for now, you can add him and go with it. When Bogut returns, when Barea's minutes come back up, which I think they will, that's going to impact what Seth can do. But for now, he's putting up numbers that warrant a roster spot. As for Barea, only 18 minutes there, 12 points and 6 assists in those 18 minutes, so they're good numbers. He's more a 14-team league sort of a guy, but absolutely I believe he can become a 12-team league guy as the season progresses. Dirk sat out down the stretch here, 10 and 10 in 27 minutes, but did come back late on, but wasn't a great game, but still has to be owned, while the pencil Harrison Barnes had 20 points with 4 rebounds, and Wes Matthews had 11 points, including those game-winning 3 at the end in that last minute when he hit that wide-open jump shot. Got a couple of things to talk about in this game. You can go check my Twitter account today, but I got into, and this is not Dallas related, but it is because I got into an argument with not an argument, a discussion, I guess, with the Dallas Mavericks, one of the Dallas Mavericks beat reporters, Dwayne Price. And he was, after this game, he said, this is why you don't tank, because it's fun to get wins, and in this upcoming draft, there are no Kobe's, there are no Michael Jordans, there are no Birds, there are no Magics, there are no Kareems, there are no Hakeems, there are no Dirks. Right? That's it. So why would you tank if these drafts don't have any of these players? Because if this draft had those players, we would know about it by now. And I highlight this because it's just an incorrect statement for a start, in my opinion, and it shows the way that people can get influenced by hindsight. Because those names that he brought up, okay, yeah, there's no Magic in this class. There's no Kareem. There's no Hakeem. There's no Tim Duncan, who are all consensus number 1 picks basically at the time, right? Which is fine. I would argue this class is one of the more stacked and deepest or highest talent level classes that we've seen in maybe 10 years. So I don't know how he's saying this, but to immediately say that none of these players are going to be Hall of Fame talents, I don't know how you can say that. And secondly, Michael Jordan wasn't the number 1 overall pick in his draft. Larry Bird wasn't the number 1 overall pick in his draft. Kobe Bryant wasn't the number 1 overall pick in his draft. Dirk Nowitzki wasn't the number 1 overall pick in his draft. So at the time of those drafts, we didn't know that there was a Dirk in that draft. We didn't know that there was a Kobe in that draft. We didn't know that Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan at that point. We knew he'd be pretty good. We had an idea. We didn't know that Larry Bird was going to be Larry Bird. Otherwise, he would have gone not at pick 6. So that was my issue with that. We look back and go, oh yeah, but there's no one that's Larry Bird. But at the time, we didn't know Larry Bird was Larry Bird. Nobody knows that. But you get a better chance of that by having a better draft pick rather than sitting in here and getting pick 13 or pick 15. Yeah, one of those might turn into a player, like Giannis, like Dirk, who ended up getting picked at pick 9. It might turn into a player, but you've got a higher chance of that happening if you've got a pick in the top 3. And that was my argument. I wanted to expand on that argument that I was having with Dwayne on Twitter about that, is that I don't know what these players are going to become in the draft, but neither do you. And you're coming out and saying that they're not going to be Hall of Fame players, they're not going to be stars, when at the time you had no idea that Kobe at pick 10, we didn't know that Kobe was going to become Kobe. You didn't know that Jordan was Jordan. You didn't know that Bird was Bird. You had no idea, because if you did, you wouldn't have picked them at 8, 9, 10. They wouldn't have gone there. They would have gone at number 1. And every player, every team in the league would have given up every future asset they had to get these guys. That's the difference. My next rant comes from the Chicago Bulls. Let's talk about their performances first. Jim Butler, 24, 9, and 12. Big night from Jim. Gets to the line just an inordinate amount of time. And to be honest, I'm a Bulls fan, but watching someone go to the line that time is really not that enjoyable. I just feel like every time he drives, he's just trying to get free throws, and that's fine. That's how the game works, but it's not all that enjoyable. Still big performances, and he's been fantastic for fantasy this year. Mick Carter-Williams, 21 minutes for him. 10, 5, and 1. He had 2 threes. He had 2 steals. He had a block. He was 4 of 6 from the field. That's a really good night from Carter-Williams. So, of course, Rajon Rondo plays more than him. Now, Rondo was horrendous in this game, especially down the stretch when they went back to Rondo, Wade, and Butler, except they played Rondo as a shooting guard. Why on earth, Fred Hoiberg, would you play Rondo alongside Wade and Butler and have Butler bring the ball up and have Butler initiate everything and have Rondo stand around? You couldn't have made a worse coaching decision to do that. Or so I thought, until we saw the last play execution, which I'll get onto in a sec. As for Rondo, yeah, he played the most minutes out of the point guards here, 23 minutes. 0 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. You can leave him for the deeper leagues. He is horrible and he does not deserve a starting spot in the NBA anywhere. Dwayne Wade had 17 and 5, but he was a horrible shooter, going 8 of 21 from the field. Nick Mirotic returned, but with Taj Gibson out, they didn't start him. They started good old Paul Zipser at the 4, who had 5 points in his 19 minutes, while Mirotic had 6 and 5 in 22. Mirotic, they did say they wanted to ease him back because he had missed some time with that illness, get his energy levels back. So I can understand that, but you could have also started one of the other power forwards on your roster, maybe Bob Portis, instead of going with Paul Zipser as a power forward, who he was all right, but he was nothing spectacular. Robin Lopez had 21 points on 15 shots, which was second on the Bulls team. I just don't understand these scenarios where Lopez gets as many shots as he does. He had 5 boards and a block, and that's a great performance in 36 minutes, but I'd almost make the argument that Cristiano Felicio played better than Lopez and has played better than him for a stretch of time. Felicio's minutes, if the coach had any idea what he was doing, would have to be increasing, but unfortunately they're sort of stagnant. 12 minutes for Felicio here. He is a guy that you do have to look at in your 16, 18 team leagues and keep an eye on in standard ones. Lopez for 10 team leagues is not a must-own, but I think he probably is in 12 team leagues. Dougie McDirt, back to being McDirt. 7 points in 22 minutes with 6 rebounds for Doug, 3 of 10 shooting. This is why you don't want him. This is why you don't need to own him in anything outside of probably 16 team leagues. Now, the last second, you know I've got issues with the end of games in NBA. I've got issues with timeouts. If you're going to have timeouts, 1 per team, that is it. There is no need for 7 timeouts. And nearly every time that a timeout is called, it just screws things up for the team. And case in point with this game. The Bulls, Jimmy Butler hit a nice shot to give the Bulls the lead. The Mavericks, with like 20 seconds left, 30 seconds left, I think it was, didn't call a timeout. They just ran the play. The Bulls were all getting back, celebrating with each other, slapping asses and high-fiving, and the Mavericks just played on. Darren Williams ran down, made some great plays, and a fantastic wraparound pass from Williams out to Wes Matthews for that open 3 as the Bulls got just cooked on defense. Matthews had literally the entire side of the court to himself. There was not another player on that side of the court. Fantastic stuff. And then the Bulls call a timeout, guys. And you can imagine the conversation that Fred Hoiberg must have had in that huddle, because going by what we saw, all right, Jim, you just hold on to the ball and you just dribble it for as long as you can, and then maybe dribble it off your knee and hope it goes to Dwayne Wade, and then Dwayne, you stand still and you take a shot. Everyone else, don't move, don't do anything, just act disinterested. Because that's exactly what happened. So what's the point of a timeout? What's the point of anything? Just play. Disorganization. I feel like these coaches put so much influence or so much attention to what they do game day, when the majority of a coach's work should be done pre-game, should be done during the week, should be done off days, should be done coaching during the week, not making play calls. Trust your players to know what to do in that scenario. Trust your guards. Trust Jim Butler to set something up, to open some guys up. Trust your players to move and open some things up. Not call a timeout for that bullshit to waste everyone's time and then have potentially the worst game-ending situation you could possibly dream up. It doesn't get any worse than that from a playing point of view and from a coaching point of view, and honestly from a spectating point of view, to watch a team halt the momentum of a game which was fun. That Butler make, the Williams to Matthews, it was fun. And then let's pause it for this dribble, bullshit clank off the back of the rim shot from Wade. Like, it was just disgraceful. Just disgraceful basketball all around from the Bulls at the end of that game. And they are my rants from that game. Apologies for that. The Minnesota Timberwolves and the San Antonio Spurs. The report came out today that Ricky Rubio, the Wolves are actively trying to shop him. Yep, okay, all right. Why? Don't know. Because he's their best point guard by a significant margin. And I am of the opinion that Chris Dunn will never be as good as what Ricky Rubio is at the moment. Rubio came out and went 21, 2, and 14. He had 2 steals. He was 4 of 9 from the field. He was 13 of 14 from the free throw line. He now has 5 straight games of 10-plus assists, and they're not Rondo assists. They're assists that get the offense humming. They're assists that make sense. The ball is in his hands, and it gets taken out of the ball gets taken out of hands of guys who aren't great playmakers, like Wiggins, like Levine, and it works. Now, they did lose, but they were playing the Spurs on the road and scored 114 points. That's a fairly decent sign of a good offense. I don't believe that you should be adding Chris Dunn in any league where he wouldn't be valuable now. I don't think you should add him in 10s or 12s or probably even 14-team leagues in hope that there's a trade. I don't think if you own Rubio, you should be worried. Yes, a trade might happen and Tom Thibodeau might make a massive mistake. He's made plenty of them before. Everyone's made lots of mistakes in life, and it happens. I just don't see this as this is just screaming out to me as being, what are you doing? And then when it happens, it'll be like, what have you done? That's the thought process that I get from this, and it comes from a lot of Timberwolves fans as well. It feels like that everyone else around the league is saying, oh, they've got to trade Rubio. But I don't really think anyone who watches Timberwolves basketball would say they've got to trade Rubio because he's been fantastic. So I wouldn't be, hang on now, just as we're recording, a Woj bomb just came through. Atlanta is trading Mo Williams and cash to Denver. And then the Hawks will sign Gary Neal to a 10-day contract. I don't know what to say about that. We don't know who is coming back from Denver to Atlanta. It seems like a weird deal. I don't really see what Gary Neal is going off. Because I've got Gary Neal in the Red Rock Dynasty League who's sitting on my roster and taking up a roster spot in salary. So I've got him. So that's action. I don't really see what this does for Denver, who comes back in the deal, but that just got tweeted out now from Woj that Mo Williams is going to Denver. I don't still believe that Mo plays, so there's no fantasy play in that whatsoever. Thought it was just interesting that it happened as we were recording. All right, for the rest of the Timberwolves, Gorgie Jeng 17-6, but a great defensive night. A steal and 4 blocks. Well, Shabazz Muhammad, the other player rumoured in trade, Shabazz Muhammad, no problem. He was the other player rumoured in the Rubio talks. 15-4 in 23 minutes, while Zachary Levine had 18, 4 and 2. Wigo was horrible. Not only was he horrible, he just didn't really get anything happening. Only 8 shots now. I can be critical of Wiggins, but he needs to take more shots than 8. 10, 3 and 3 in 38 minutes for Wigo. He just continues to be a confounding conundrum, really. We just never know, what is this guy? He's a guy that scores 20 points and then has games where he does nothing, is inactive defensively on the boards, passing. I don't know. He's just so confusing at the moment as a player. As for Chris Dunn, the point guard in waiting, so to speak, 9 minutes for 0 points. For the Spurs, Kawhi Leonard. Big night from Kawhi, 34, 7 and 5, and the efficiency was through the roof. 12 of 17 from the field and 8 of 9 from the free throw line, while LaMarcus Aldridge had 29, 4 and 3 with 2 blocks. So big gains from their stars. Aldridge was also a 60% shooter from the field. And there's really not much else happening from the Spurs in a game that they scored 122. Tone Parker had 14 points in 29 minutes with 5 assists. That's fine for 14-team leagues. Pat Mills returned. He had 11 points with 4 assists in 19 minutes. Probably one of his better games in the last month or so. He is just a 16-team league guy at the moment. Dan Green scored 5 points, but he had a 3, he had 4 steals, he had a block. He's probably more a 14-team league guy, but he can have value in certain builds, namely punt point situations. His ability to get steals and blocks as a guard can be really valuable. Dwayne Dedman had 5 and 7 in his 19 minutes. And Manu Ginobili had 9, 2 and 2. Really just nothing all that interesting happening with the Spurs, despite scoring 122 points. You look at it and go, where did all these points come from? And that's a weird thing to say. The last game of the night, the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. Nikola Jokic.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
34 minutes for Jokic, 29 and 15. He hit a 3. He had just the 1 assist, which is obviously down on what he normally does. 3 blocks. I talked about can he continue his shooting. Well, he had 55% shooting on 22 attempts. The free throws were a weird one. 4 of 6 from the line. Let's interrupt there because Woj is back with another Woj bomb. Denver will waive Williams, whose $2.2 million gets Nuggets closer to the salary cap floor. Denver sends Atlanta the rights to Cenk Akyol. There you go, blockbuster. Get your Cenk Akyol dynasty trades in. It's literally just a salary cap move, and that's all it is. So back to the Nuggets. Yeah, Jokic is fantastic. He is a top 10 player at the moment. Someone said to me today that they could potentially get Jokic in a trade for Julius Randle. And they said, should I do it? Like, yes, absolutely. And they said, in the end, the person said no, he countered with CJ McCollum. Still take it. McCollum's been great, but Jokic is ridiculous. He is so good, and I'm so glad that Mike Malone didn't make me look like one of the biggest dickheads around by talking about how good Jokic was in the preseason, because it sure started out that way. I seem to think that it made me look like I didn't know anything that I was talking about when I talked about how good Jokic could be with a reasonable level of caution associated with it. But he is just absolutely on fire at the moment. Manny Mudiay also playing well. 3 strong games in a row from Manny. 28 minutes, 14, 2 and 6 with 2 steals and 2 triples. I think you got to own him in any punt field, or I know you have to own him in any punt field goal situation. And his last 3 games have not been punt field goals. So really need to have a look. As if he's on a waiver wire, I would be looking at it, no doubt. Ken Fareed started with Darrell Arthur out. 20 and 7 for Fareed in 30 minutes. As I said, I like the Fareed-Jokic combo. I don't think that Fareed's a great player by any means, but I do really like the Jokic-Fareed combo. And if Fareed can maintain this starting spot, which he could potentially do, then you have to own him. And I would have no issue with grabbing him at this point. I'm a known Kenneth Fareed disliker, but this situation works and no issue. It's another big night. Now, 9 of 10 shootings, fluky, obviously. And my main issue with Fareed was the fact that he's limited in what he can do, but the fact that Malone continued to play him at center over Jokic, which made absolutely no sense. He's a 4 and he plays off Jokic, and that is what's working at the moment. The Nuggets scored over 125 points for the 3rd consecutive game. They beat the Lakers 127-121 here. Wilson Chandler, 14 and 6 in his 26 minutes off the bench, 4 blocks, which is huge. I reckon that Chandler's going to come down and not be a 10-team league must-own guy in the coming weeks. That's just a prediction. While the Rooster had 14, 5 and 6 in 39 minutes. Jameer Nelson, after playing 30 minutes in the last game with Gaz Harris out, he went down to 20, and that's because of the strong player Farton Will Barton and Manny Mudiay. So any ads of Nelson in 12-team leagues, you can likely move on from those. Well, Yusuf Nurkic only saw 8 minutes. For the Lakers, Uncle P. Let's start. Luol Deng hurt his wrist 2 days ago. Not one person knew about it, apparently, until today, until about an hour before tip, when Eric Pincus of Basketball Insiders and Bleacher Report tweeted that, hey, Luol Deng just walked past him with a massive wrap on his wrist. That's weird. Haven't heard anything about it. And then about 20 minutes later, by the way, Luol Deng out with a wrist sprain, and he is now out indefinitely. Now, before anyone gets excited, out indefinitely means there is no timetable. Indefinitely could be 2 days. It could be 6 months. I would guess it's a couple of weeks at this point, and that's going to really elevate what Brandon Ingram can do. Now, Ingram played 37 minutes here. 15, 5 and 4 with 3 steals. 2 triples. So Ingram is absolutely worth a grab in a 12-team league at this point, just with this news with Deng. If they're going to give him 37 a night, which has basically been every time that Deng has been out, we've seen 37 minutes from Ingram, that's going to make him worthwhile. So go and grab him now. No problem with that. But when Deng comes back and he goes back to 26 minutes, then it won't be worth it. He's not that good of a fantasy contributor, Ingram, that he's able to do it in 27 minutes. He needs 35 plus, and this is the opportunity for him to do that. Uncle P, 22 points with 4 triples and 3 steals on 8 of 16 shooting. He got some extra run with Deng out as well, so I wouldn't be getting overly excited. I think he's more a streamer or a 14-teamer. Well, Lou Williams, he got the Lakers back into this one in his final quarter performance. 24, 4 and 7 for Lou, with with him really running things in that second half last quarter, D'Angelo Russell really struggled, and they were down big, the Lakers, so when they started coming back into it, Walton continued to run with that bench unit, so D'Angelo Russell saw 17 minutes, 5, 2, and 3. If he gets dropped, I'm grabbing him absolutely immediately, and it could happen because people are very quick to bash D'Angelo Russell because, he's a snitch and shit. Yeah, snitch, that's what happens. Seriously. People will drop him, and if that happens, I will add him. I do want to let's talk Jordy Clarkson, 19 points in 36 minutes. He was part of that backcourt with Lou Williams that got the Lakers back into the game. Good stuff from Clarkson. Probably not a 10-team leaguer, but absolutely fine in 12-teamers. I've said it ad nauseum this season, is when you look at young players, what's in front of them, and the Lakers centers has been something that I've focused on a bit. Because Tim Mozgov's fine, but he's not that good. Tariq Black is fine, but he's not that good. Tom Robinson is not good. But you know who's got a chance to be good? Ivica Zubats. 26 minutes for the big man, Ivica. 11 and 13 for his first career double-double. 1 steal, 3 blocks. This guy is a fantasy top 100 player. I can't stress this enough. He needs 30 minutes to do it. Maybe 27 minutes to do it. But he is a top 100 player. He's got the best fantasy profile of any of their big men outside of Julius Randle, and even, to be honest, equal minutes, you might even consider Zubats has got a better potential than Randle, fantasy-wise. That's not a joke. I've been extraordinarily high on Zubats for a very long time. As soon as they drafted him, I said, look, this dude should start almost, not straight away, but very early on in the season. And then they committed way too much money to Tim Mozgov just to crush my hopes and dreams. But now it's happening. And this is the trend this is what's important to pick up on, these little trends. Over the last week or so, he was getting extra minutes. He was getting first quarter run. He was getting second quarter run. He was playing games. He was playing ahead of Tom Robinson. He was playing ahead of Tariq Black. And then it blew up into this. I'm really excited for Zubats. I don't believe that he's a must-own in a 12-team league guy at all. Absolutely, you can grab him and to say, hey, if they're just going to run him out there 26 minutes a night, and look, they're not going to start him because Walton has just a massive aversion to changing the starting lineup for whatever reason. It's fine to start a guy and play him 10 minutes. No worries, look, you can do that because that helps everybody. But he's got a real aversion to starting it. But it's not an unrealistic thought to say Zubats is going to play more minutes than any other Lakers center for the rest of the season. That's not unrealistic. It's probably not likely, but it's not unrealistic. Because Tariq Black did all right here, but he played at the 4 a lot with Luol Deng out. So if Deng's back and Nance is back, what does that do for Zubats? I think Nance is probably the biggest risk because they'll play Nance, Randle, 4 and 5 combos. But Zubats is intriguing. 20-team leagues, add him. 18-team leagues, add him. 16-team leagues, add him. 14-team leagues, I guess it depends on who you drop. Dynasty leagues, I'm all about this guy. I drafted him in dynasty drafts, and I've sat on him all season, and it is going to pay off. He's a tremendous talent. To me, I think he was a top 12 or so guy heading into in the draft. That's where I sort of thought he should be. Fantasy-wise, he was like a top 4 guy in terms of per minute fantasy production. But I can't go on about him enough. But just watch who you drop. But he definitely, if you want to be risky, if you want to be ahead of the curve in a 12-team league, it might be worth it. But there is the return of Deng, the return of Nance, and the fact that maybe this was a one-off. They ran him with the bench, and then he'll go back to playing 8 minutes a night. So be aware of that. But don't be shocked at the production, because we've been talking about it since July. You're ready for this. I prepared all of you for this. I prepared all of you that when Zubats gets minutes, he is going to be a fantasy guy. And we're at that right now. I think we're done with the action from Tuesday. All right. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back and preview the 9 games that we've got happening on Wednesday for DFS purposes. ladies and gents, we're back. Let's talk perfect DFS lineups from Tuesday on FanDuel. Corey Joseph at 42.8 and Rick Rubio at 40. I should play the Ravishing Rick Rubio music. There we go. Just get that in there. Rubio 45.5, DeMar DeRozan 57.2, Farton Will Barton 41.8, Jim Butler 51.8, Kawhi at 50.9, Gorgie Jang 37.7, the man, Nick Jokic 52.5, and at centre, Ivica Zubac at 35.1 for a total of 415.2, and that cost you 59,500. If you had Zubac in a lineup, congratulations, because you are a Nostradamus. DraftKings, Corey Joseph 44, Jimmy Harden 77.5, Farton Will Barton 39.75, Ken Farid at 32, Brookie Lopez at 43.5, DeMar DeRozan at 60.75, Brandon Ingram at 32, and Rick Rubio at 48.5 for a total of 378, and that was $49,900 worth of salary over on DraftKings. Now, there are 9 games. Let's get cracking. The first one of those that we're going to look at is the Philadelphia 76ers. They are hosting the Toronto Raptors. As I said, this is a back-to-back for the Raptors. Lowry will be back for this game, but I would just be keeping an eye on my man, the guy that I've just completely forgot his name, DeMar DeRozan, in case he sits. If he is out, then we'll have all the updated information on Basketball Monster, and it'll be Norm Powell, Corey Joseph who get the bumps there, and Terry Ross as well. The Raptors are favoured by 5.5. The total here is 210. There's a few situations to look at here. Pat and Bebe Nogueira for the Raptors are both questionable. Patterson missed today, and Bebe was out with that early concussion, blurred vision situation. If both those guys are out, they could go back and start Norm Powell at the 3 and push Damari Carroll to the 4, or they could go back to Pascal Siakam. With Ersan Ilyasova starting at the 4, there's no real need for them to go super big. You could put Carroll on Ilyasova. That would be a matchup that I think would be fine for the Raptors. So that would be the way that I think they would tend to go. But given the way that Siakam played in the second half, I can see Casey going back to that scenario. I'd be looking at Powell if he started in DFS, but not Siakam. I don't really think there's a huge amount to love there with him. For the Sixers, TJ McConnell is doubtful, so I don't think we're going to be seeing him playing. But the fact that he's not 100% ruled out gives me good hope for him, not for this game, but in terms of his season-long value and what to do with Sergio Rodriguez in that sort of a situation. Gerald Henderson is probable. Joel Embiid is probable. He missed the last game, but he's also dealing with an illness. He should be right. Nerlens Noel is probable with an ankle, and Jelly Okafor is probable with soreness. The only issue I think that Okafor is going to have to worry about with soreness is splinters in his ass from sitting on the bench when Embiid and Noel get all the minutes, so I don't think we need to worry too much about him. Let's get into the actual players now. Spanish Chocolate at 4,100. There are no other point guards on this roster outside of Chase and Randall, so you're getting 30 plus minutes of Spanish Chocolate, and you are loving it, and you are playing him at that price. Now, on DraftKings, he's had an increase to 4,600 just to try and deal with this situation, but still, I think that there's no reason to avoid using Sergio Rodriguez, especially on FanDuel. It's an absolute slam dunk. Corey Joseph at 3,900. If DeMar is out, then Joseph will play alongside Lowry quite a bit. Obviously, he had a monster today, but he is still sub $4,000, so there is a lot of value to be gained there. But if both Lowry and DeRozan are in, then it's going to be tough to really get too much into Joseph. 3,400 for him on DraftKings. I would even be okay with using him if both Lowry and DeRozan play, because there could be a situation that maybe the Raps get some blowouts happening and we get some extra Corey Joseph minutes, and we know he's not shy about taking a shot, as we saw today. As for Lowry, it's a homecoming for him heading back to Philadelphia. He is at 8,800. It's a fairly chunky price. If DeMar is out, then that's good for Lowry. I think we're going to see a monster performance. He's at 85 on DraftKings, which I'm a little bit more in favour of than his price at FanDuel. But if DeRozan's out, he becomes a really good option on both sites. At shooting guard, DeRozan's at 9,000. He had a 57 pointer today. Obviously, he was ridiculous. No issue with using him. Again, the Sixers are better than the Nets, and he played 37 minutes against the Nets. So I don't think they're going to limit him too much. Even if they do limit him, it might be 37 down to 34. So I think that DeMar's in a relatively good spot here. The Sixers shooting guards aren't. Small forward, Damari Carroll, 42. I think there's value in Damari. On FanDuel, at 5,300 on DraftKings, that is not something I'm keen on. While Terry Ross is at 3,700, I really do think that he's 36 on draft. DraftKings. I do think that Terry Ross has some pretty significant GPP upside on both sites there. Bob Cove, not as keen. 5,300 for Robert Covington, 55 on DraftKings. The minutes have been trending downwards, so that's not a positive scenario. They've been giving more minutes to Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, so that Covington has been going, instead of 33, he's playing like 28, 27, and that's not enough to cover that salary, so he's not someone that I'm keen on. Power forwards, Ilya Sovas at 58, Dario Saric is at 42. Saric is a guy that I would look at as a GPP option. He had 33 in the last game, and he has had those games where he's put up big scoring nights. Doesn't happen often, but that's why he's a GPP guy. I don't think there's much to love there with Ursan, and Nerlens Noel is at 4,500 on FanDuel and 49 on DraftKings. That's too high. Centers, Jonas Valanciunas at 5,700. Good matchup for him. I think that he's a really nice, low-owned guy. I don't think many people will be going back to the well after the sort of crap that we saw from him today, but I think that he's in a decent spot here and should be looking at 30+. I do like Valanciunas here, whereas Embiid at 8,400, you're probably pushing my friendship now at 8,400. He's at the same price on both sites. Yes, he scores a lot, definitely. He's averaging 44 over his last 3. He dropped 49 the last game, but I think you're just pushing it a little bit too far at that sort of a salary. That it might be an idea to, as blasphemous as it sounds, to fade Joel Embiid at that extra salary. But what do I know? He could come out and just continue to blow up, but it just feels like it's just pushing it just a bit too far at the moment. All right, let's move on to the next game. Who are we up to? We've got the Memphis Grizzlies, and they're taking on the Washington Wizards. The Wizards are favored by 3, and the total here is 205 points. No injuries for us to be concerned about, or no game time calls or anything along those lines. At point guard, to be honest, this game there's not a lot to love in general. It is the Grizzlies. The Wizards do have a fairly decent defense at times for fantasy purposes. On DraftKings, there's more to love than there is on FanDuel. Let's start, though, with point guards. Johnny Wall's at 9,100 on FanDuel. It is a price drop of $400 from where he was last game, which is solid, but we know what the Grizzlies can do to point guards. I think Wall is still a solid option there. On DraftKings, though, at 8,600, I love that. That's a $700 price drop. Yes, the matchups are negative, but at that sort of a price, that's something that I can totally get behind. As for Mike Conley, he's at 7,800. He's been crushing it. Now, John Wall defense is a factor, but Conley's averaging 42 points over the last 5, and at 7,800, that obviously works in your favor. He's at 75 on DraftKings. I think he's definitely worth using as well at that salary. Got some nice numbers putting up lately. The Wall defense is somewhat of a concern though. Shooting guard Brad Beal, 7,000 on FanDuel. He's at 64 on DraftKings. Love that on DraftKings. He's averaging over 40 the last 3 games. At 7,000 on FanDuel, yeah, not as much of a fan of it, but definitely has some appeal over there. Not totally feeling Beal on FanDuel, but definitely on DraftKings, he's an option. Tone Allen, who's playing backup point guard now, he's at 4,700 on FanDuel. I don't hate Tone as a GPP guy, but really not a lot of love there, and 47 on DraftKings is not really working for me. Otto Porter's at 5,900. Just, yeah, it feels like it's a couple of $100 too much at the moment, given the way they're running things with him. Now, he has dropped by 600 on DraftKings, down to 5,800, but he's only averaging 27 points there over the last 3 games. So I'm not... I'm not thinking that Otto is a great play here. Vince Carter, Kelly Oubre. Oubre had a nice game in the last one, but I don't really see that repeating. JaMychal Green's not someone I'm keen on, but I do like Markieff Morris. Now, the matchup is a negative for him. He's at $6,000, so it makes him a little bit harder to use given how good he's been previously. I would still feel okay about it, but he's not the slam dunk sort of a guy that he has been. And Zebo is up to 6,100. That is a GPP option to me only. I'm not keen on him in any sort of cash game play. Marcin Gortat down to 5,800, has been underperforming, now gets Marc Gasol, so that's a double no for me. 5,700 for Gortat on DraftKings. Look, I suppose you can look at him as a GPP guy. I just don't really feel his upside's very high. As for Gasol, 8,100, FanDuel, too high. 7,200 on DraftKings. Yeah, I'm okay with Gasol at 7,200 on DraftKings. I can't really shell out the 8,100 for him over on FanDuel though. Where are we next? Let's look at the next game. That is the Portland Trailblazers and the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets are favored by 4.5, and the total is 215.5. Let's talk point guards. Kemba is at 7,900. He has been playing well, but he has not been playing $7,900 well. So I don't think it's a GPP option, absolutely, but it's not. It's far from a good cash play. And he's at 77 on DraftKings, which is a little bit better. It's not bad, but I still think that there are better plays out there. As for Dame Lillard, 8,400 for Lillard. You know what I'm going to say? He's a GPP guy only. I won't really be paying any attention to him in cash, and he's at 8,200 on DraftKings. The same thing goes. Now, it is a really, really good matchup for him. And on DraftKings, I may move into a cash play, but with the way the Blazers have been playing and the way Lillard's been up and down, it's really tough to rely upon a point guard that's costing you $8,000 to put up 40 points. He just hasn't been that reliable player this season. Shooting guards, Nick Batum at 7,400. He plays against his former team here. He's been solid. I don't think he's got much tournament upside, but I think he's a fairly solid cash play on both sides. I think he has value there. Well, CJ McCollum, 8,300. That's too high. 7,300 on DraftKings. That is a price I can get behind, but not on FanDuel at 8,300. It's still sort of pricing him in for Lillard not being there, and that's clearly not the case. Alan Crabb's a GPP only type of player, but with Mo Harkless back, it's going to be harder for him to see the 30 minutes that he was seeing previously. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at 4,800. I think that Kidd-Gilchrist has GPP upside here with Jeremy Lamb out again, but I definitely don't want to trust Kidd-Gilchrist. Mo Harkless, no. And let's go move to power forwards. Marv Williams had a big game in the last one, but that big game was 26 points. And that's not enough to justify me spending 4,600 on him. He is a pass, and there's no the other power forwards. Yeah, Myers Leonard is a guy that I'm interested in. On DraftKings only. He's at $3,000. Ed Davis is out. So Leonard could get 20 minutes here. He got 22 in the last game and put up 18 points, which at 3,000, it's 6x. It's enough value. It's a positive matchup against Charlotte. I think he can. Look, I wouldn't want to do it in cash, not a chance. But a $3,000 guy who could get 21, 22 minutes and put up 21, 22 points, that can work. On a 9-game slate, get some other high-priced guys in, it could work, but it's clearly just a GPP situation. Cody Zeller at 5,100, love that. Really solid for cash, I believe. At 5,100, that's on FanDuel, and he's at 52 on DraftKings. No issue with him on either site. While Mason Plumlee has been dipping in his production, he's at 6,300 on FanDuel. That's a tougher one to get behind. 5,600 from Mason on DraftKings. Yeah, love the matchup. Love the salary that's down so far. He's clearly got 30-point upside, so I think he's a really solid option there. Let's move on to the next game now. We're going to look at the New York Knicks. They're taking on the Boston Celtics. The latest update on the Carmelo Anthony situation, he has said that he will not be waiving his no-trade clause. He wants to remain in New York. There's multiple facets for this. Obviously, his family and family life, but also he just wants to tell Phil Jackson to sit on it, basically. You want to trade me? Well, stiff shit. You're the dickhead that gave me the no-trade clause. I'm sitting here, and that franchise is a mess on so many different levels. Kristaps Porzingis. He is questionable. He's missed the last few games, obviously, with that Achilles problem. What they also look, this is something that really pisses me off. The Knicks have said, oh yeah, maybe we'll be looking at playing Carmelo Anthony now more at the 4 and Porzingis at the 5. And if Porzingis is ready to play, he's coming back and starting at center. Like, no shit. I could have told you this 6 months ago. Anybody in basketball land pretty much could have said to you, you know what Carmelo Anthony's best position is? It's the 4. You know what Kristaps Porzingis' best position is? It's the 5. But no, let's spend $72 million on Joakim Noah and let's have him play center. Let's have Melo at the 3. Let's have Porzingis at the 4. Like, it was as clear as day to me. And now, again, it takes 2 months, but coaches realize the shit that they should have realized at the start of the year. Or the front officers should have realised before they signed Joakim Noah to a ridiculous contract. So apparently Porzingis is coming back and he's going to play center. So it's going to push Noah to the bench. But while Porzingis is out, Noah plays minutes. He played 33 minutes in the last game. He put up 37 points. So if Kristaps happens to be out, then he definitely gets a value bump here. If Kristaps is in, then everything about him just evaporates. Well, not his being. He's sort of still there, but his fantasy value evaporates. Point guard. Yuck. Derrick Rose, 6,200. No, thank you. Isaiah Thomas. He is putting up ridiculous numbers. Now, people will call me out on stuff that I say all the time, and that is perfectly fine. I encourage it. I like that stuff. Someone said, you've been talking about Isaiah Thomas regret. And maybe it wasn't a call out. Maybe it wasn't. You've been saying that Isaiah Thomas is going to regress for a while now, but the dude keeps on going. He keeps killing it. Really balling, really helping my team, and that is absolutely true. But the usage that he is using over the last 2 weeks, which is 36%, I believe, and the true shooting at 64% has literally never been done in NBA history. So there is no way that he can continue what he is doing. And that's my point with Thomas. He's been great. He will probably still continue to be great. He won't continue to be this level of great because literally no player ever has been able to do this, maintain this higher usage with this higher true shooting percentage. Actually, that's not true. I think there were 7 guys who had played a combined 100 minutes in those seasons, combined. Like they were guys who'd played 1 game, 3 games in 10 minutes. Like that's it for their true shooting and usage. They'd taken 1 shot, so their true shooting was 100%, and their usage was 40 because they were on the court for 1 minute, took a shot, and no one else took a shot, or something stupid like that. No player who was an actual player has ever done what Isaiah Thomas is currently doing in this latest stretch that he's doing it. So therefore, when you look at his salary and you go 9,700, you just go, no, thank you. That is a lot. And yeah, he is killing it. The Knicks are not ideal, but they're also not a perfect matchup for point guards. But 9,700, you want 48 points. And it is a lot. And I don't want to spend it on Isaiah Thomas. For as good as he's been and for as admirable as his play is as this little guy, and he's the people's champ and Boston loves him, this can't continue. There is literally no way that it can continue. On DraftKings, he's a much better option. He's at 8,700. So no problem using him on DraftKings. 9,700 on FanDuel is a no thanks. That's not happening at all. Marcus Smart, he's not worth looking at this point. And Ronnie Baker, maybe he starts again. He's at 3,700 on FanDuel. He had 20 points in the last game, and that was only in 20 minutes. He's at 34 on DraftKings, and he had 23 points. And that, again, it was only in 22 minutes. So Ron Baker, is he a GPP option at that limited salary? What if they start him and play him 30 minutes? It is a possibility. So he's a GPP option only, but interesting to see exactly what Hornacek does with the starting lineup with him moving forward. Avery Bradley at 6,400. No. But on DraftKings at 5,900, that's one I can get behind. Now, he wasn't great in his first game back from that Achilles problem, but he has been fairly good this season, and he can exceed 5,900. I'm just not sure about 64 on FanDuel at the moment. Courtney Lee on the bench now, not likely. Melo's at 7,700. If Porzingis is out, I think Melo's a great option there. He's at 8,000 on DraftKings, not quite so keen there. But on FanDuel at 7,700, if Porzingis is out, no issue running Melo out there. He was fantastic in the last game. While Jay Crowder is also on a significant role. He's at 5,600 on both sites. He's been exceeding 30 points a night. No problem using Jay Crowder. And I think he's a fairly solid guy to look at. The other player we've got to look at, especially if Porzingis is out, or definitely if Porzingis is out, is Mindaugas Kuzminskas. He's at 3,900 over on FanDuel. He's at 43 on DraftKings, but he is averaging a stack of points, 23 points across the last 3. He had 26 in 38 minutes in the last game, his first NBA start. And if Porzingis is out, we know Lance Thomas is out, then Kuzminskas is going to get 30 plus, and he's going to exceed 20 points. Therefore, he becomes almost a staple in a DFS lineup. Absolutely need to look at him with pretty focused glare. Won't be using Porzingis, nor will I be using Amir Johnson. Let's talk centers. Kelly Olynyk crushing it, averaging 32 across the last 3 at 4,300. If you have any worries about Tyler Zeller, don't, because he is out of this game. Big men thrive against the Knicks. Olynyk is still risky. It is still a tough one to put in just because of Brad Stevens' frustrating use of him. But at that salary with his current production, how can you not have him as a GPP guy? And I would even consider him in some cash lineups. Al Horford, the same sort of thing is going to happen with him. 7,300, which is getting to be not a bad price, especially in this matchup for him on FanDuel. DraftKings, 6,900.
Giggity!
Go knock yourself out. Like that's a great price. He continues to be a great price over on DraftKings. As for Noah, I already touched on. Porzingis out, Noah in. Porzingis in, forget about Joakim. It's not happening for him in that sort of a scenario, especially considering they said that he will be coming off the bench in that situation. Let's look at the next one, Orlando and the New Orleans Pelicans. No spread out for this one because we're waiting on the status of Bismack Biyombo. I talk shit. We're waiting on the status of Evan Fournier, Anthony Davis, and Bismack Biyombo. That's better. So obviously a few questionable guys there. If Tony Davis is out, it's all about Terrence Jones, who was benched in the last game, but he would likely reclaim his starting spot. Now, what they would do, whether they'd play Terrence Jones at center, I don't know. But Alvin Gentry and NBA coaches in general, they'd rather start a center for 5 minutes like Omer Ashik and then play with a small center the rest of the game than start a small center. Because I know you can't start a small guy at center, but you can play them there for 38 minutes. Logic does evaporate through these coaches' brains fairly quickly, regardless of what happens there. If Davis is out, Jones is the guy to go for. In Orlando, if Fournier is out, it's Jody Meeks, and if Biyombo is out, we're looking at more Serge, more Vucevic, and more Gordon in those scenarios. They become much better plays. At point guard, Drew Holiday has been disappointing recently. He's averaging just 24 points over the last 5 games, and he's at 6,400 on FanDuel, which is obviously not a very high price. The matchup is a good one for Drew, but the recent production hasn't been ideal. At 7,300 on DraftKings, I think you can scrap him. But on FanDuel at 6,400, I do think that there is a GPP use for him there. Lord Alfred Payton crushing it. He's at 6,200. He had 40 in the last game. In fact, he is averaging 43.5 over the last 3 games, which is just ludicrous to think about when you're talking about Lord Alfred. The matchup is a big positive for him. There is still obviously risk involved, and that's a fairly chunky salary. I'm not sure that I'm all aboard using Lord Alfred on both sites, but the upside is there. Clearly, the recent form is there, but stinkers are only 1 game away from him, and Frank Vogel has a big hand in that. Each-one more at 3,700. There aren't many cheap shooting guards abounding on the slate, but 37 for each one on FanDuel, 31 on DraftKings. We've seen Bud Hield play under 20 minutes the last 2 games in preference to more. He had 24 points in the last game. At 3,700, I think that you can have a look at more as a GPP flyer on both sites. Fournier is down to 5,200 on FanDuel. It's really cheap. It's really appealing, but I just don't trust him at this point because we don't even know if he's playing yet, so it's probably a no from me. Tyreke Evans killing it, but at 5,600 on FanDuel, it's not a salary that I'm in love with. 5,900 on DraftKings, again, not a salary I'm in love with, but he's putting up the numbers, no doubt. It's just a hard one to go for. As I talked about, Meeks is a guy if Fournier happens to be out. Aaron Gordon's at 4,900. Yes, he can sink you, no doubt. But I really do like him here in this matchup, especially if Biyombo happens to be out. I think this could be a big one from Gordon. 5,400 on DraftKings is probably not as good, but that's more a Biyombo out, then I'll use Gordon. On FanDuel, I think he can be used either way. Let's talk power forwards. Serge Ibaka, 6,100. No interest in Serge, but if Bismack is out, then interest in Serge because he will play backup center. He will get some more minutes, hopefully get some more blocks and rebounds. At 5,800 on DraftKings, I don't think it matters with Biyombo's status. I think that really works in his favor either way, so I like him there. As for Tony Davis, 11,200, 11,000 on DraftKings. Yeah, if he plays, it's fine, but at this point, we have no idea whether he will actually be suiting up, unfortunately. Terrence Jones, as I talked about, will be a must-play guy if Davis is out, but not someone I'm keen on if Davis is in, because he will likely sit on the bench again. What are we looking at here? Center. Nick Vucevic, 7,200, obviously gets a little bit of a bump if Biyombo happens to be out, but he's been putting up good numbers. He's got a good history against the Pelicans, and no issue with considering him an option, and 6,600 on DraftKings is super appealing, so I do really like him over there. All right, let's get into the next game now. Talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. They're taking on the Houston Rockets. The Rockets are favoured by 7.5, and the total is the biggest of the day, 227 points. We've got to check on Ryan Anderson, who missed out today's game, and Eric Gordon, who sprained his ankle. So a couple of big scenarios there. Yeah, Corey Brewer gets a bump, and you could consider Corey Brewer if both of those guys happen to be out. If both guys happen to be out as well, Sam Decker is the other player who gets a significant bump too, with a fair bit of usage probably going to Pat Bev and to Jimmy Harden too. Let's talk point guards. Pat Bev's at 5,300. This is irrespective of who plays or not. I think that Beverly at 5,300 on FanDuel is an option. At 5,400 on DraftKings, I'm not as keen on it, but I do think that Beverly averaging 29 points over the last 3 games is absolutely fine here. And then he's got that upside. If either one of those guys sits, he should get a bump in that scenario. As for Malcolm Brogdon, 5,300. Yeah, I'm not feeling it at that price. And Daly, no thanks. If we look at Brogdon over on DraftKings, he's at 5,600. That's even less appealing to me over there. Eric Gordon, if he is right to go, I think he's a GPP guy, but that's it. Jimmy Harden, 11,800. Yeah, well, we know who he is at this point. We're getting 55 to 60 pretty much most nights. He's averaging 65 points in his last 5 over on DraftKings. Really not a huge amount to say about Jim. Well, Yanni is at 10,600. I'm on board with using Yanni here in this matchup. I think going him or Harden is going to be almost a must in cash games, and putting those guys as your shooting guard. Who you go for is up to you, but you can save $1,200 by taking Antetokounmpo, and I think that might actually work in your favour. He's at 10-4 over on DraftKings. Again, I still think he's a solid play over there as well. Trevor Ariza at 5,800, a perfect matchup, really big boost, and if Gordon or Anderson is out, then we're going to see huge numbers from Trev. I think that's a good price for him on FanDuel. He's at 55 on DraftKings, another good price for him there. While Mick Beasley's at 4,400, which is a little high on FanDuel, but 37 on DraftKings, no problems. He's getting the minutes. He didn't have a great game in the last one, but still put up 17 points, which at 3,700 doesn't actually crush you. So Beasley's got upside, and he's got a solid floor at the moment, which is just a weird sentence to say. Sammy Decker in play if both of Gordon and Anderson miss. As for Ryan Anderson, if he plays, he is strictly a GPP guy. We know that big men against the Bucks can put up good numbers, so Ryan Anderson would come into play there, but trusting him in cash is an impossibility. Whereas Jabari Parker is at 7,500. I like Parker in this matchup against the Rockets. He's at 71 on DraftKings. I think he's absolutely someone that you can use in either format, to be honest. The table, Montrezl Harrell, forget about that at 5,300. Not happening now. He's back to being the third string center. Speaking of centers, Greggy Monroe's at 5,900. That's a $400 price drop. He has been putting up good numbers until the last 2 games where Jason Kidd has limited him, so he is a risky proposition. While John Henson's at 36. I could see using Henson as a GPP guy, but I also wouldn't feel very good about it at all. I think he could get absolutely torched by the Rockets, so that could limit him. So absolutely a GPP guy, but in cash, forget it. He's a really tasty 3,200 on DraftKings, but I wouldn't feel comfortable getting sucked into that price. All right, let's move on to the next game now. We're going to talk about the Atlanta Hawks. No longer with Mo Williams, and the Detroit Pistons. No spread out for this one. A few injuries to take a look at. Andre Drummond is listed as probable with a knee sprain, and Aaron Baines is probable with a sore left knee. And there's a couple of questionable guys. Johnny Lua with his knee that he's missed the last 4 games, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's missed the last 2 with his shoulder. So obviously, if those guys are out, things are changing. The biggest one is if KCP is out, you get Stanley Johnson in, who's played some decent minutes recently and put up some okay production. Put up 26 in the last game at 3,700. So KCP out, then you absolutely have to look at Stan as a GPP guy. But if, say, John Lua plays, I can see Van Gundy going with a Morris, Harris, Lua, Drummond starting 5, which is horrific, but I can see Van Gundy doing that. And that'll limit what Johnson can do. But he has got GPP upside. No doubt about that whatsoever. Let's talk about the podcast. Not about the podcast. Jeez, what am I talking about? Let's talk about the point guards. That's what I want to look at. Dennis Schroeder at 6,500. He had a 34-point game in the last one. Fine using him. Yeah, it's a slightly negative defense if KCP plays. If KCP is out, then I feel much better about using Den Schroeder. And Reggie Jackson, who's at 6,300 on FanDuel, which is a fairly decent price. At 7,000 on DraftKings, fairly decent price, but he gets the best matchup here. He gets to take on the Atlanta Hawks, which is great for point guards. He's done well against them so far this season, but that salary is a little bit turn-offish, and I would look at him as a GPP type of a player. Ish Smith, Malcolm Delaney, who have had their moments in recent times, but they are strictly GPP guys. Timmy Hardaway, we know what he is. He's a GPP guy. He's at 4,800. He's averaging 26 across the last three. He can go big. He can go small. That's what makes him a GPP guy. And at 5,000 on DraftKings, that's testing the friendship even for GPPs to me at that $5,000 price point. Small forwards, Marcus Morris at 4,900. Only be considering him if probably both of those guys are out. If both KCP and Lua are out, then I would look at Marcus Morris at 4,900. Otherwise, he just is primed for disappointment. And Kent Bazemore at 4,600 has been putting up two consecutive good games. So that means a stinker is just around the corner. But he is a GPP upside type of a play. And at 4,400 on DraftKings, the same story with Baze over there. We're looking now. Power forwards. Johnny Lua. Yeah, really not interested in using him at this point. Paul Millsap at 8,300. I think that he's got a real chance to exceed 40 points. And 7,800 on DraftKings. Yeah, one of the better options on both sides. I think there is great value in him. Toby Harris at 6,000. Yeah, really keen on him if Johnny Lua is out. Less keen if Lua is in. But still, I think he's got good value because he was thriving off the bench when Lua was playing. So it doesn't impact him a huge way. I think he is still a good option on both sides, to be honest. Probably less on DraftKings, where he's at 6,400. But FanDuel is absolutely fine. As for Drummond, 7,600. I don't like the matchup here for Drummond against Dwight Howard, and with that knee issue, he's probably a fade. But if Lua is out, I'd be a little bit more keen on Drummond. As for Dwight, 7,000 for Dwight on DraftKings. If we look at Dwight over on FanDuel, he's at 7,300. I like him on DraftKings. I'm not as keen for him on FanDuel. I still think that he's got a chance of a big game, but he'd be more a GPP target to me on FanDuel. All right, let's start wrapping this up. We're down to the second last game of the night. It's the Indiana Pacers. They're taking on the Sacramento Kings. The Kings are favored by 1.5. I don't know why I said it like that. 1.5 points, and 214 is the total for this one. Ty Lawson is suffering from a sprained ankle. He's probable to play, but it's something to check back on. If he is out, then we can load up on Darren Collison. Otherwise, they're just a complete crapshoot and GPP options only. The other point guard we're looking at is Jeff Teague, of course.
My name is Jeff.
He's at 7,800. It just feels too high. I can't get behind Jeff Teague at that price. It's fine in a GPP, but in cash, I don't have the reliability of him at that salary. On DraftKings, he's at 7,600, so he's a little bit better, but I still don't think that it's really a solid investment at all. Shooting guard Garrett Temple is at 4,100. He's at 39 on DraftKings. The projections really love him in this matchup. I don't love him that much. I think that if you've got a few high-priced guys around, you've got Jim Harden there next to him, you've got some of these other high-priced players, Boogie Cousins, Anthony Davis, if he is in, then putting Temple in a cash game, hey, here's Garrett, he's 4,000, give me 20 points. Yeah, it can happen. But over the last 3 games, he's played 30 minutes and he's averaged 15 points. So that's why I'm not totally keen with him. But this matchup is a positive for him, and that's what could work out in his favour and could work out in your favour. Paul George is down to 7,500 on FanDuel. He's still at 7,700 on DraftKings, but at 7,500 on FanDuel, I reckon that's a pretty good spot to use Paul George in this matchup. Yeah, he should be able to exceed 37, 38 points, so I do think that that's a good spot for him. As for Rudy Gay at 7,300, yeah, no worries with using Rudy Gay at that price, and at 7,000 on DraftKings, he's actually way more appealing. He's averaging 42 points over his last 3 years. Paul George defense is a little bit of a different story, but to be honest, small forwards going up against the Pacers actually get a bump in their value. For as good as Paul George is defensively, small forwards do put up more numbers against the Pacers than against league average. So Gay is a really, really good option at that salary. Power forwards, Anthony Tolliver, 4,000. Much like I talked about with Garrett Temple. Put him in at cheap, get your 22, 23 points, which he's averaging 22 over the last 3 games, and feel pretty happy locking it in. And he's at 4,100 on DraftKings, the same story. Get your 24 points on DraftKings and lock it in. Great value from Anthony Tolliver. Not much upside for GPPs, but a pretty solid cash play. Whereas Thad Young at 5,400, I do really like Thad Young on FanDuel. Not so much on DraftKings, but 5,400, where he's averaging 28 over the last 3. I can totally get behind that. And he's got upside. And power forwards that take on the Kings, they crush it. They put up big numbers, and that's the exact situation that Thad Young finds himself in. At center, it's all about Boogie, 10,700. He's averaging 52 across the last 3 games. He's at 10,600 on DraftKings, where he's averaging 57. Yep, this is one of the high price guys that you go for. A Harden Cousins lineup, a Yanni Cousins lineup is a really solid way to go. As for Miles Turner, he's at 6,900. He's been putting up good numbers, but now he gets boogie, and that's a problem. 7,000 on DraftKings. I'm just not willing to spend that money on a bloke, a young player who's taking on Cousins. For as good as he is, it's a risky proposition, absolutely no doubt about that. All right, the last game of the night, it's a big one. It's the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Golden State Warriors. I know my brother's got tickets to this one, so he'll be going to watch the second installment of Westbrook versus Durant. The Warriors are favored by 13, and the total is 227 points. The last time this game happened, Westbrook didn't do a huge amount, and KD was on fire. I'm not sure that'll necessarily be the case again, but I think it's the way we've sort of got to look at it. Steph is at 9,200 on FanDuel. I'm not interested in him at that price. I just don't. Look, he's been putting up really good numbers, but I think he's more a GPP guy, whereas Russ at 12,300. Russ has been great, but he's averaging 49 points across the last 3, 51 across the last 5, and at 12,300, it doesn't cut it, especially when I can spend 11 on Harden, 11 on Yanni, 11 on Boogie, and feel more confident in their situations here. Now, Russ might come out and really try and lay it on KD, but he did that in the last game, and it didn't really work in his favour as they got absolutely blown out. So there is a risk with Russ. I would probably look at him as a GPP guy, to be honest. I'm not really feeling him as a cash play. Shooting guard Klay Thompson at 6,500. Not trusting him. He is a GPP option, and that is it, in my opinion. And Vic Oladipo at 5,600. I think Oladipo is actually in a good spot here. I think he should do okay in this matchup, and I think he should be able to get 27, 28 points. I do like Oladipo there at 5,500 on DraftKings. Maybe not quite as high on it, but still think that he's got some value and some use. Jeremy Grant, now I don't know if he will start at center again. I think he will, as the Warriors do play small a bit. He's at 3,600. I don't think that he's going to be hitting as many threes as he did in that last game, but he got 24 points. He blocked some shots. Enes Kanter was basically unplayable the last time the Warriors took on the Thunder, so I think we could be seeing some more Jeremy, and at 3,600 I think he's got value, and even at that price, if they say he's the starter, I reckon you can use him in cash as well. Andre Robertson, no. Kevin Durant, 10,400. He's another guy that I'm really willing to spend up on, and is under 10,000 on DraftKings. He's averaging 50 points across his last 5, and at 9,900, taking on his former team, no concerns. Power forward, Enes Kanter, huge risk. Played like 3 minutes the last time the Thunder played the Warriors. Yeah, there's no Steve Adams in this game, but that didn't matter in the last game because there was no Steve Adams, and Kanter still played only 23 minutes. So it's not like they have to play him out of necessity. Billy Donovan did not do that, and this is the worst matchup for him in the NBA. So I don't expect to see a lot of Enes Kanter. 8,100 for Draymond. I really like that matchup for him on FanDuel. There's good value there, and 79 on DraftKings. No problem whatsoever. At center, Zaza. No, Joffrey Lavernier is the guy we take a look at. He's at 3,700. He played 30 minutes in the last game and scored 27 points. He's at 3,200 on DraftKings and had 28 points. He's absolutely a GPP guy to take a look at if they decide to go back to him, which, as I said, they might limit Kanter because of the matchup, and not Lavernier is much better, but it could be a situation to use him. So he is definitely one of the GPP centers that I would consider looking at. All right, that is all of the games wrapped up for Wednesday. Let's talk picks of the day now. The FanDuel side of things, Sergio Rodriguez, 4,100, Pat Bev's at 53, and Lillard is at 84. Shooting guards, Etuan Moore, 37, Nick Batum, 74, and Yanni's at 10.6. Small forwards, Jeremy Grant, 36, Trevor Ariza, 58, and Durant is at 10.4. Power forwards, Tolliver's at 4,000, Thad Young's at 54, and Paul Millsap, 83, and at center, Kelly Olynyk, 43, Cody Zeller, 51, and Boogie's at 10.7. On DraftKings, Spanish Chocolate, 46, Dennis Schroeder, 6,000, and Johnny Wall. That price is incorrect. I've got him at 4,600, which is obviously untrue, but I think it's 8,600 for John Wall. Etuan Moore, 31, Brad Beal, 64, and Jimmy Harden, 11.7. Jeremy Grant, 37, Trevor Ariza, 55, and Kevin Durant, 9.9. Power forward Anthony Tolliver, 41, Paul Millsap, 7,800, and Boogie, 10.6. And at centre, Myers Leonard, 3,000, Cody Zeller, 5,200. On the Australian sites, Moneyball, Sergio Rodriguez, 43, Reggie Jackson, 56, and Damian Lillard, 85. Shooting guard, Etuan Moore, 35, Nick Batum, 74, and Jimmy Harden, 12.2. Jay Crowder at small forward, 48, Paul George, 71, and Kevin Durant, 10.7. Cody Zeller, 48, Thad Young, 57, and at centre, Kelly Olynyk, 41, Al Horford, 71, and Boogie's at 10.8. On Draft Stars, Malcolm Brogdon still at 6,400, Spanish Chocolate 84, and Kemba Walker 14.9. At shooting guard, Terence Ross, 58. Tyreek Evans, 8,550. And DeMar DeRozan, 15.2. Small forward Anthony Tolliver, 52. Damari Carroll, 8,000. And Draymond, 14.6. Power forward Jeremy Grant, 5,650. Cody Zeller, 9,550. And Kevin Durant, 17,850. And at centre, Kelly Olynyk, 8,000. Nick Vucevic, 12,750. And Boogie is at 18,200. We are done here, guys. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball and check out the rest of the Locked On Podcast Network, including Locked On Lakers, where you can hear Anthony and Harrison talk about Ivica Zubats to your heart's content. We are done here, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Rajon Rondo.